Hello, Devlin Bishop here with you, and welcome to another edition of Devlin's Pirate Radio Show. Thank you for making me a part of your day. Come on in, stay a while. What would you like to talk about today? Well, since I haven't found a way to make this interactive yet, I guess I'm going to dominate the conversation as I always do anyhow. Anyhow, I hope you're doing fine. I'm doing pretty good. Getting ready for the holiday season coming up. I'm really excited about it. I always get giddy around Christmas, but I have a feeling I'm going to be in the Christmas spirit early this year. I'm going to try at least. I just love when I get into that feeling, and I think I'm almost there. I think I am. I can feel little twinges of it and stuff. As you know, I start getting ready and prepared. One of the traditions Mike and I like to do around here is we watch the Santa Claus parade, the Toronto Santa Claus parade together. Unfortunately, we don't get like cable 14, so we don't get to see the Hamilton Santa Claus parade. And every year I say to myself, oh, I should go to the Santa Claus parade this year. And every year I'm either busy or I talk myself out of it, and I say, well, I'll go next year. I don't know why. I think I'd have a blast. But to be honest with you, as I get a little older, it is kind of nice to watch the abbreviated version on TV. And Mike and I basically watch it because we like to, I don't know, have a laugh. We rag on it a little bit. I'll be honest. We don't sit there and just like, oh, this is wonderful. We have a laugh. At the funny parts of it. One of our favorites, this particular one, was Indigo had a float that had gigantic versions of all these, characters that kids like reading their own books. They had like Peppa Pig, and they had one of the Paw Patrol dogs. And then at the very end of the float, on this big throne, they had the Grinch. And he was sitting on the throne reading Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Now, the thing we laughed about it, and you really have to see it to believe it, but the throne didn't really look like a throne. It actually looked more like a toilet. And since the Grinch, when he wears the Santa suit, doesn't wear the pants, it actually looked like the back of this float, the Grinch was taking a dump. And we just couldn't stop laughing. It was just kind of funny. Because we just kept saying, really? Nobody else saw this? Like, we're the only people who noticed that it looks blatantly... Because the throne wasn't like a big throne. It just looked like the lid of the back of the toilet. And it just... We had a good laugh. It might be one of those moments you had to be there to believe it. But it's little stuff like that that always makes us laugh. And it kind of got me thinking about how when I was a kid, my dad used to always take me to the Santa Claus parade. And so I decided I was going to wax nostalgic and talk a little bit about Santa Claus parades. Because I really liked them when I was a kid. Back when I had more endurance and I could stay out for a couple of hours on a cold day and just, watch all the things go by. Now, I'm going to really show my age here. When we first came to Hamilton, we probably started going to the Hamilton Santa Claus parade. But some of you might not remember this, you youngins. But when I first went to the Santa Claus parade, it was always done on Hamilton Mountain. Because I remember specifically watching the parade go by. And then when it was finished, we were freezing, and we'd run to the Mountain Plaza Mall and run in there, Woolco or whatever was up there at the time. And we'd go and, warm up a bit. And sometimes they'd have places that would sell like hot chocolate. And it's wonderful memories. And I don't remember my brothers being a part of this because I think about it. My brothers are a couple of years older than me. Like we're talking like 7, 8, 9 in that area. And so I can't see my brothers Ernie and Paul wanting to go to the Santa Claus parade. So basically what transpired is just me and my dad would go. And I know my mother never went. She I just can't picture her going to something like that. But anyhow, I remember, we'd get there early because you'd get your space in line. Not that it was overly crowded, but there was a lot of people that would attend. And you'd see all these great floats. And I always liked, even as a kid, I liked the pop culture floats. I always liked the more animated ones. They'd always sometimes throw in a Wizard of Oz one, or they'd have a Charlie Brown one or something. Or, and Snoopy's walking there. But it's funny because the thing that we like about parades is just the idea of them are kind of crazy. And I know as you get to be an adult, some people love parades and others don't. Mostly because some like, the tradition of taking your kids and standing there waiting for Santa to come at the end. And then there's other people who are like drivers who want to go shopping that day, and they know that like all the roads are going to be closed and stuff. So there are some adults that are probably like, oh, I can't stand parades. All it does is cause havoc. You have to get redirected. So, but I like the idea of parades because they're just kind of fun, and when you think about, I'm actually surprised parades have lasted because I just thought, I don't know, just the way things are going in society, the way, new generations are, don't really have, you see a lot of younger people that don't seem to have the span that we did as kids. I always bring this up when I think of, a lot of kids' movies nowadays are about an hour and a half, maybe a little more. But then I look at movies like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and Mary Poppins and Bedknobs and Broomsticks, which are all like 2 hours, sometimes closer to 2.5 hours. And I think, how as kids did we sit through them when kids can barely get through a 90-minute film? But all kids are different. I know some kids that could easily watch a movie. But I'm shocked that the parade thing, to be honest with you, is still alive and well. Though I think it's a lot of fun. Some of my favorite parts, I love the floats. And I know the floats now are kind of, I don't know, I find they're not quite as elaborate. I'm sure you get the elaborate ones at like the Macy Day Parade and stuff like that. And it didn't seem like Toronto had a lot of elaborate ones, and even the elaborate ones look kind of lazy. And then you see like some of the older style ones, like they have a Mother Goose one they do, and the Toronto one that is just absolutely fantastic. And I think they said it was in the parade for, pretty much its run, and they always, dust it off and stuff. But it's always fun. And what I always like when, sometimes they have a float and then they prop some people on it, mostly kids, and they're usually dressed up as something to do with it, and you see them waving kind of, some of them really into it, and others are just kind of like, I don't want to be here. Then there's always that kind of boring bits in the parades for kids when you have like, like here's the mayor of, Place City here in an antique car, and they do a couple of this is the chairman of the parade or whatever they used to call it. And there's nothing wrong with it, but you're just like, it's just somebody in an antique car. And I know in the old Hamilton ones, they used to have just, if you owned a fancy car, antique car, you could just get into the parade. So it's like, hey, we have money, wave to us. Then they always have the marching bands, and I always wondered if they actually compete. If anybody has an answer for me, please let me know. If they have to like compete to see what songs they get to play, because obviously they need to talk about, well, this band's going to play this, because you don't want every marching band to come and play Santa Claus is Coming to Town. So, do they actually like, draw straws or something to pick, well, we're going to do Oh Little Town of Bethlehem, we're going to do Winter Wonderland, and, do they have this competition kind of thing? And being it's a Santa Claus parade, I'd assume Santa Claus is Coming to Town would be the most popular one you'd want because of the fact that he's coming to town at the end of this parade. That's just me, though. Anyhow, yeah, so, and I loved it. Now, I remember them giving stuff out. I see at the Toronto parades, it looks like they give more and more candy out. In the last parade I went to, I was probably an adult, And I remember getting a lot of, like, they'd hand you candies and stuff like that. As a kid, I don't remember getting a lot of stuff. I remember sometimes they'd hand you like a flyer or a coupon, for something, like you could go get a hot chocolate or something. But I do remember getting maybe the odd candy, but I don't know if you get a lot of loot at these things anymore. It's not like Halloween where you stand there, but it should be. You should stand with a Christmas bag and they fill it up for you. As I said, I love that my dad took me to these things because I remember some of them were really bitter cold too. We get up early, so we got our stand, and just it makes me, endears me as well as it makes me laugh to think we'd be standing there freezing our nuggets off for a couple of flatbed trucks with some decorations on it and stuff like that. But the parades make me smile still, and one day I will get out to one. Maybe I'll do a stepping out next year. I'm not going to make any promises like that, but you never know. It would be kind of fun. Anyhow, one of my big memories is waiting for Santa Claus. And I'll be honest with you, I believed in Santa Claus. Well, I still believe in Santa Claus because he's very real. But what I meant is, like, I was older when I started getting a little more cynical, so I'm glad that I you know, I had that belief for so long. And and but as a kid, I knew that the Santa Claus that was coming at the end of the parade was not the real Santa Claus. I remember even young, because I knew that, because my parents always taught me about Santa's helpers, that there were multiple Santas, because the real Santa, can't be at all these different parades or malls. And so I was never like, I was excited for the actual whole parade. I wasn't just excited for, oh my God, Santa's coming. Because as I said, as a kid, I knew it wasn't the real Santa. I knew the real Santa was up at the North Pole. There's no way he's got time to be coming to the Hamilton Mall, parade, and then he'd be at the mall somewhere else in Burlington. I knew that wasn't the real Santa. I knew it was one of his helpers. And don't get me wrong, the helpers do an incredible job because he can't be everywhere. So, but I kind of always knew that. So even when I waved to him, I just knew, okay, well, and I didn't snub him. I wasn't that kind of kid. Still one of Santa's helpers, I still, he'd get back to Santa if I was like, oh, I know he's not. That's not him. That's not him. I knew it would get back to him. So I was still very pleasant to him. To be honest with you, at the Hamilton one, every year McDonald's would have a float in it, and Ronald McDonald's would usually be on the float. And being a husky little chubby kid, I was actually more excited to see Ronald McDonald, because although Santa can't be in many different places at once, I believe that that was actually the real Ronald. And for a kid who ate many French fries and filet of fish, I was excited. I was more excited to see Ronald McDonald because I knew this was the real Ronald McDonald. But I knew the Santa in this parade was going to be one of Santa's helpers, and not realizing that Ronald also has multiple helpers as well. But I truly was like, oh my God, look, it's Ronald McDonald. Now that should tell you something about the 70s and 80s, how praise and pop culture is. How I'm like, I know that's not the real Santa, but hey, Ronald McDonald. Now there's someone to look up to. It was almost like a religious experience for me. It was like, oh my God, it's like I'm seeing the Pope, or like a royal visit from the Queen. And I'd just be like, as soon as you see Ronald McDonald, you think that first thing, can we go to McDonald's tonight? My dad would be like, no. Because we did go to McDonald's, but we didn't go a lot. It was like a special. It was a treat. But I love that, here's this little fat kid that just was like, oh my God, it's Ronald McDonald. Starstruck over Ronald McDonald. And to be honest with you, if I was at a McDonald's and it was one of those Ronald visiting days, I'd still be a little starstruck. I don't know why. Anyhow, and then Santa would come at the end, and Santa was always like, what I loved about it was they'd always usually get a really good Santa. I always have to admit that the parades always got really good Santas, where even I was like, is that really maybe that is the real Santa. Maybe it is one of his helpers. They'd always get good ones, but I always loved it because you'd always see it coming. You're like, oh my God, he's almost here. He's almost here. He's almost here. And they usually threw in a couple of extra bands just before. And I don't know if that was to heighten the thing. And, it was kind of chaotic because you'd be hearing, oh, come all ye faithful. And you'd hear, let it snow, kind of playing opposite one another because they had two bands too close together. And, or they'd have like, the people that got to walk with the banner. And you always thought they must have sucked playing the instruments because they have to walk with the banner. I don't know. That's the way I saw it. But anyhow, you'd see them and you just see, the reindeer, Hamilton used to have these moving reindeers that would go up and down. They weren't real reindeers, They had they had real reindeers in Gore Park, but you can't risk putting them on a flatbed, pulling even a fake sleigh. So you'd be excited when finally Santa was there, but it was almost anticlimactic because of the fact that he would just drive by quickly. It's not like, you might hear him say ho, 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 or wave, and you'd always wait for him. Even if it was just one of Santa's helpers, you always waited for him to wave and hopefully see you. Because it almost like, okay, he's going to tell Santa that I was at the parade. And that's good. That'll put an extra little good mark on my book that I took time out for him. Like when you go to a Veterans Day ceremony at Remembrance Day, you're doing a good thing. So if you're going to a Santa Claus parade, you get like a plus from Santa because you were there promoting him. But it was anticlimactic because he'd just go by and then everybody would kind of disappear right away because we were freezing our balls off in a nice, well, I guess that wasn't a censored term, but we were so cold that we'd make a run for the for the Mountain Plaza Mall. And later, a couple of years later, maybe in the 80s, they started doing it downtown. And I remember Gore Park used to be gorgeous, and I really feel bad that none of you younger people got to see how beautiful Gore Park was. Now, they still try their best down there during the holidays, but we used to have a gigantic Santa castle down there where you would go and visit Santa, and it would almost be like a spiral thing around, and you'd go wait in line, and it was always very crowded, but you didn't care because you were going to see Santa. And it was just beautiful, Gore Park down there. And then they started doing the parade down there. I always thought it would be kind of fun if they actually had the parade start downtown and work its way up the mountain. I think, yeah, sure, it might be a little scary for some of the kids hanging on the floats, but just imagine how awesome it would be to be a parade that actually goes up a hill, like goes up our escarpment. Wouldn't that be amazing? What a clever way to get people out. It would almost be fun to stand in the part where it's going up, even though that could be annoying too. But just to see like everybody kind of trying to hang on to their stuff, or seeing, can the marching bands actually play, or are they spit valves, spitting back at them? Because they're trying to, play the trombones to like, jingle bells while they're walking up the escarpment. Anyhow, it's a wonderful thought. I'm sure that's going to be in your mind now for a while. All the Santa Claus parades, I believe, have already passed this year, so I can't inspire any of you to go out. But definitely check some out. It's definitely, if you've never done it, you should do it. It's kind of a fun experience. And even if you just watch it on TV, that's fun too. It's become a tradition for us to watch it on TV. I don't think I'd ever get Mike out to see it live, and I don't think it'd be as fun because we'd probably be on our best behavior and we couldn't, make fun of stuff. I remember last year when we watched it on TV, this is a little crude and blue, so I apologize in advance. Not that it's ever stopped me before. But we saw Ronald McDonald, and the announcers were talking about McDonald's, and Ronald was yelling to the kids. He was on this big podium, and he was yelling to the kids and stuff. And I said to Mike, wouldn't it be weird if Ronald just had Tourette's and he was just yelling any random dirty word out that you could? And so, Ronald's on this float in the parade, and he's just like, tits, shit, ass, fuck, yeah, and we just started laughing. So every time we see Ronald McDonald and we can't hear what he's saying, we just assume he's like, piss, pussy, yeah, just any dirty word you can think of. And it's just like me to have a a beautiful sentimental Christmas segment on Santa Claus, but I'm going to end it with dirty words. That's what you get with my show. That's all I can imagine. Anyhow, we're going to do a couple more segments for you, because it would be weird if I just wrapped up the show now. And what would Corda do? Corda loves editing these. This is her life. She loves it. Trust me. So we're going to do a couple more segments. We're going to go to the movies next. It's time to do my look at some November films. I got to see 3 movies, and I can't wait to talk to them. And we will be doing that right after this. Hello, we're back. And, it's Devlin's Pirate Radio Show. It's pretty bad when you forget what you're doing. I only record one show. It'd be different if I had multiple shows, But we're back, and at the end of every month, or beginning of every year, every month, I like to tell you about some of the movies I saw. I just started doing this, and people seem to like my reviews. I always tell you, take my reviews with a grain of salt, as any review go. I don't care if you have a favorite reviewer or not. You should be the one who decides whether you like a movie or not. But thank you if you take any of my criticisms and say, hey, if you like it, I probably will too. I saw 3 movies in November, 2 mainstream ones and 1 independent film. And it was a good month because I enjoyed all 3 of them. And we're going to start with a big movie, and it's Doctor Strange. And some of these movies are probably still playing at your local cinema. So, Christmas is not only the time for Christmas shopping, Christmas parties, but we all head out to the movies, for some reason. Christmas is a great time, and so you might be able to find some of these. If not, they're probably going to be streaming or on DVD real soon, too. My first movie is Doctor Strange, Marvel's latest movie. I think it's the 14th movie, but don't quote me on that. And it stars Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. And again, here's another property that I'm not familiar with. Don't get me wrong, I've heard of Doctor Strange, knew nothing about him, nothing about his origin story. Very similar to like Iron Man and Ant-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy. So Marvel is here to introduce to me yet another layer. And when I say a layer, this is yet another case of them doing an incredible job, first of all, introducing me to this character, who Benedict Cumberbatch does an impeccable job of. He does a great job of this character. He just makes it his own. Kind of like an egotistical doctor who is just all about perfection. And then when he gets into a car wreck and his hands get damaged, he refuses to let himself be a cripple and that's probably not the right word, but we'll go with it, and decides to go seek other ways of healing himself, and winds up finding a whole kind of magical thing that you have. And it's not surprising this movie is doing well. Number one, it's a Marvel film, and Marvel is hasn't really hit a clinker in my eyes. Ant-Man wasn't my favorite movie in the series, but I still immensely enjoyed it. But they have not had a fail, in my opinion. I know some people call Marvel like the Pixar of live action, but I personally think Pixar has had a couple of mediocre ones as of recent, but that's just, again, my opinion. But I think they, once again, introduce a character that not a lot of people know, and this is just an interesting one. I was kind of on the edge of my seat for all of it because I loved getting to know this character. And Swindon, I can't ever say her name, Tilda Sweden, she's a really great. She was a controversial casting for this role, but she does an amazing job. There's a lot of secondary characters that all step up to the plate to make this movie just a really phenomenal piece. And quite frankly, I think this is just good storytelling. They know their properties. They honestly 100% know their properties. And again, what I love is that Marvel always finds a brand new feel to their movies. As in, each movie has its own distinct feeling. And I think that's what's making Marvel so popular right now, is that it finds its niche. Civil War movies, the Captain America movies are kind of all having their own feel. And then you've got, Ant-Man had kind of like a comic book heist film kind of feel to it. They're all finding their own notch, and that's good because they need to do that. Because if they start feeling the same, they're going to get boring. And Doctor Strange takes... When Guardians of the Galaxy came out, what I liked about it is let's go back further than that. When Thor first came out, I thought to myself, okay, they've kind of dealt with the superhero thing, but now they're going to put gods in it. And I said, that's not going to be easy to do, but Thor has fell beautifully into the universe that I shouldn't have even given the benefit of the doubt. Then when Guardians of the Galaxy, now they haven't really mixed with anybody yet, but they are going to probably be seen in one of the next Avengers movies. But now they're bringing space more into it. And with Doctor Strange, they bring a brand new level of movie to it because this one deals with magic and manipulating time, manipulating space. Like, they do things in here absolutely wonderful. And it's going to be a game changer in this just because it is just so well done. And I can't wait to see how he plays with the universe. And although you don't get to see that a bit without spoiling too much, there are hints at the end. Again, stay till the end credits. It's a Marvel film. I'm surprised. I'm shocked when I see people still walking out of it because there is kind of a hint of him with another one of the superheroes, which is quite nice to see. Hey, we're going to see that. Anyhow, I don't promote 3D all the time. I think 3D has been hit and miss. I can think of great times that I was in a movie where the 3D was incredible. But I have to say, Doctor Strange, the psychedelic mind warps of the world, I would definitely recommend you seeing this in 3D before it leaves theaters, just because it is that good. It most certainly is. Doctor Strange, incredible film. On a scale of 1 to 10, I think I would give it maybe an 8 out of 10 will go. That's not official. That can change, but at this moment in time, I would give it an 8 out of 10. Moving on to my next film, I got to see this independent film. I love these films that just come out of nowhere, and thank you, the Westdale, for bringing me a lot of these so I can see them at the theater. I'm surprised I didn't hear about this movie because one of the stars in this movie is Shia LaBeouf. He's actually the male lead in this movie. It's a movie called American Honey, and it's the story of a young girl who escapes her life and just out of nowhere joins a group of free-spirited people who are making money by selling magazines door to door. Sounds like an unusual premise. Now, I read some of the articles about this before I went, and everybody said that this is like the voice of the new generation. So I didn't know if I'd absolutely fall for this movie. But this movie is just a really interesting... There's so many people in this movie that you've never heard of. I think Shia is the only actor. Actually, no, there was maybe a couple. Will Patton is another actor I knew. But most of the actors in this movie are fairly newcomers or have been in smaller films. So it was kind of like watching a really long reality show. And I say really long because this movie actually clocks in at 2 hours and 45 minutes. Now, saying that, it's not one of those movies where you fidget throughout. I was engrossed by this movie and I had no clue where it was going to go. Now, Shia is the male lead in this, but the star of the movie is a wonderful young actress that I think we're going to see a lot of. Her name is Sasha Lane, and she plays the character Star. She's the young girl whose life is absolutely, absolutely horrible. She basically lives with her father and two younger siblings. And you get the idea how bad her life is instantly because they're dumpster diving and, desperately to find food for themselves. And then when they get home, you see that the father's drunk, and there's hints, although I don't think they really go into it, but there's hints that the father may be having some kind of sexual advances to the lead. And one day she meets this group of full of life kids that are just absolutely like just having fun and singing music, rapping, the whole works. And Shia is one of the heads of this group and just asks her, hey, you want to make some money? We sell magazine subscriptions door to door. And we just travel the country, smoke weed, party, and actually make money. And she decides she needs to do this, so she tries to, leave her siblings in the care of her mother, who is a self-centered woman that wants nothing to do with her, but she feels that it's the lesser of two evils because of what her father's like. And then eventually she can't think about her younger siblings. She has to make her own decision, and she just leaves. And then her adventure really comes because she's obsessed with Shia LaBeouf, but his girlfriend is the one who runs the magazine business, and that's Riley Keough, another actress who just does a great performance. It's kind of an eerie performance, where it's not all fun and games at this, but it's a really wonderful movie because every time they deal with the dark side, it never goes really dark. There's times that you think it can get really bad, but there's always like light in this movie. As in, just when you think it's going to go real bad, there's always a glimmer of hope in every shot of this. As I said, the performances are incredible. Sasha Lane is a woman I will be surprised we don't hear from. She is just so powerful as the lead character. She's got a beauty about her that you can see transcends from inside, but she can also be tough and she can also be vulnerable, and you can see how, and you're not sure which is the game. Is she really a tough girl with a softer side? Or is she really just a soft girl with that? And you kind of see that. Shia, this is one of his best performances I've ever seen. Now, I'm a huge Shia fan, so, some of you are probably thinking, oh, well, you like him and everything. And that's true. Most of the time I do. Because usually, no matter what you say about Shia LaBeouf, he's a great actor. He's really good. And now that he's kind of said he's off blockbusters, and he's taking these independent films, I think we're going to see some great stuff from him. This is a wonderful performance. It's edgy and sweet, just like hers, but he has a lot more mysteries to him, and he has a sexuality about him in this that he actually says at the beginning to her that, you want me, and she says, no, I don't. And then he has this great smile and says, everybody wants me. And you think it's just an ego thing, but you start realizing that he kind of looks out for all these kids, and he also is still one of them. And again, you're always looking for answers, and they answer some of them, but they don't answer all of them. This is a phenomenal film. It's not for everyone. I don't think everybody's going to enjoy this film. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Look it out. American Honey. Wonderful film. Check it out. My final film in this that I saw in November is a movie that I think everybody should go see. I know there's going to be some people who aren't going to like it. It's called Hacksaw Ridge, and it is a movie that was directed by Mel Gibson. And although Mel has, he's kind of heard his name in Hollywood because of some, rants he did against Jewish people and the way he treated I guess it was his wife, on the phone, calling her all sorts of stuff. He's kind of burnt a lot of bridges, and he has tried desperately to get away from that. And Hacksaw Ridge, I hope, is the movie that people will forget who was behind the directing thing, because this is a movie you need to see. It stars Andrew Garfield, Vince Vaughn, Teresa Palmer, and Sam Worthington. And this is a wonderful true story that happened in World War II about a young man who decides to join the army even though he is against guns. And he actually wants to be a medic, but he does not want to carry weaponry of any kind. When he goes through boot camp, this is like, it's so powerful because they just want him to leave, because they do everything. Like, they do mind manipulations with him, because once they find out he will not hold a rifle, won't shoot one, they basically just want him out. They tell him, his unit, this man will let you die, and it's brutal, the stuff he goes through. And he fights to stay in the military because he believes he can do some good. And of course, I don't want to spoil too much, but he does wind up in battle, in a very famous battle at Hacksaw Ridge, which is kind of this cliff that they have to go up the side of the cliff. And if they can keep the Japanese at bay and get this area, it would definitely be the beginning of us winning World War II. And he goes in there as, the field medic with no things, and he does some amazing stuff. And, you might have read about it. But basically, without giving away too much, he winds up becoming a hero because his bravery keeps him there to save many men. And he does it all without a single gun. And it is just mesmerizing. Now, the thing that makes this movie incredible, and I'll get to the performances in a minute because they all should be mentioned, because there were so many great performances. But the thing about this movie is the first half is basically, we see kind of Andrew Garfield's life before the war, and him and his relationship with his girlfriend, and basically his decision to go into the war, even though, his father, played by Hugo Weaving, is not for it, because he was a kid when he went to World War I, and he lost a lot of friends, and now he's got a chance of losing two of his sons. And he doesn't want to bury his sons like he buried his best friends. And so what he does is, you see this, and then you see him in the boot camp and dealing with all the stuff, fighting for his right to go into the war. And it's very sweet, it's very inspirational, it's very praised. But as soon as we get to the war, the thing that I love about this movie is we kind of start off slow. And we start off slow. And when I say slow, I mean the pacing is slow, intentional. The movie is not slow at all. It's engrossing. The performances are top notch. But it takes its time. As soon as we get up the cliff, bang, Mel Gibson throws us into World War II. Probably some of the most graphic war scenes I've ever seen. The way he starts the war and the first firing is just unbelievable. I jumped several times through the action sequences. So you get this kind of slow sweet saccharine story, triumphant, and then it goes bang right into the, war, and it's just a great contrast to see this is what life was like in the war if you weren't over there, and then bang, you're thrown right into the middle of it, and it gets it a thing. I love the movie Saving Private Ryan, which basically within the first, that 20 minutes where you're just thrown right into it. Wonderful way to do it. I think this is just as wonderful doing it. I think this one is even more graphic. And I have to say, Mel Gibson really directs the war sequences amazingly well. You're right in the middle of this. It's so chaotic. It's basically like Saving Private Ryan the first 20 minutes. But he takes it to insane levels, and I get the feeling that's the way it was, just from what I've heard of it and the little bit that my dad has talked about it. I don't know if he was in anything as brutal as this, but it's just phenomenal. Andrew Garfield has had a phenomenal year in movies. He's having a great year. His performance in Hacksaw Ridge is just the best. And I hear he's got a movie called Silence coming up later this year or early next that is supposed to be just as incredible. Maybe losing Spider-Man did a good thing for him, because now he's, showing his acting chops, which he did at the beginning of his career. He was great as Peter Parker, but maybe now we're going to see him in what he does best. All the supporting, Vince Vaughn is really kind of funny and sincere as the boot camp instructor. He's got some of the funniest lines. And yeah, I say funny because he just basically berates all the cadets. And, I've never seen, I've seen it do, I've seen war movies where they do this, and I get the feeling this is how it really was. But the way he does it is just so, you got to see it to believe it. But it's a wonderful performance. Hugo Weaving is a little over the top, but a beautiful performance as his father. You can tell that he really feels war from the past and hates the fact that he's got two sons that feel the need to join in, because he gets it, but at the same time, he doesn't like the idea of losing two more. And one of my favorite performances in the film, actually two of them I really liked, were Sam Worthington, who I always liked him in Avatar. Avatar, and he was in. I'm one of the few people who actually liked the Terminator movie he was in, Salvation. I actually thought he was really good in the role in both movies, and I like seeing him in this. He's a small role in here, but a very important role, and I really liked him in this. And I'd like to see him in more roles like that. I know we're going to probably see him in more Avatar sequels, but I guess Sam Worthington, they tried to throw him in so many blockbusters, but it's nice to see him in a small little, military role, because his stance, he fits right into it. I really liked it a lot. And Teresa Palmer as Andrew Garfield's girlfriend is just phenomenal. Just a beautiful light on the screen, and that comes out of every way. And one of my favorite performances also was by Luke Bracey, who kind of is an ass to him. And, he's kind of that traditional asshole of a soldier that thinks he's better than everyone else. But as the movie goes on, you see there's kind of a real brotherhood between them, and they never change, but at the same time, they kind of start becoming friends. And you see it happen, and it's not just instant. It comes through beautifully. And with everybody cast so well, it's hard not to like Hacksaw Ridge. I know some people might not want to go see it because the war is a touchy subject, but this is probably going to be one of my all-time favorite war movies. I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. So wonderful looking, hard to get through at points, but worth it. Absolutely worth it. It's based on a true story. And stay right till the end because they do some stuff that I've not seen too often in a war movie where they show original footage of some of the people that you just saw. And it is, brought me to tears. And so I definitely think you should check out Hacksaw Ridge. Anyhow, I'm going to be hitting the theater as I do in December, so we'll be back at probably early January to tell you what I thought. And of course, Star Wars is in there. Rogue One's got a new movie, so I'm looking forward to that. Anyhow, we've got one more segment coming up, and it's coming up right after this. I'm back with you, and thanks for sticking around. Right now I'm going to talk a little bit about... I really didn't know what I was going to talk about with my third segment, and then what I love is that sometimes you just stumble into it. And that's exactly what I'm going to do with this segment. Because Mike and I have been doing some cleaning today. We're getting ready to decorate the place. And before I get started, I am so excited about some of the stuff I've got planned for your Christmas listening pleasure. I can't tell you everything, but I will tell you that on my actual Christmas episode, I had a dream that... I don't want to jinx this, so I won't go too much, but I had a dream about getting something for it, and it looks like I got the two things that I wanted for it. And I hope it doesn't fall through, because we're going to be filming it, recording it soon, and we're going to be doing it a little bit sooner than we thought, but it will be probably around the third week of December. You'll get to hear it. And I'm hoping it won't fall apart because it's what I want. And then I'm going to do a special episode. Not me. I'm going to invite somebody in here that's kind of like me, but and they're going to do a musical episode. And I'm excited by it. I don't even know if it's going to be one of my shows. I might just let him have the hour or hour and a half, whatever he's going to do. But we're just going to do another music thing because we've done some in the past and I think people like it. But I appreciate that you like me talking too. So anyhow, I'm excited about Christmas. So we're getting ready to decorate around here. And so what we do is we're doing a light spring cleaning. And, because we do that, do some dusting, vacuuming, all that stuff that we normally do. And then, you do a couple other things to clean up because, we're cranking out the tree and everything. So I can't wait. So I decided I'm going to tackle something I keep putting off, and that's cleaning out my closet. My closet isn't horribly bad, but it's just a mess. I know where everything is in it, but I guess I don't because I stumbled on a lot of stuff that I'm like, oh, that's where that is. So I decided, what the hell, I'm going to do it. And I don't know why, because it really has nothing to do with Christmas. It's not like we decorate in my closet or anything, but I just decided, let's do it. I don't fight it when I get in a cleaning mood because honestly, it doesn't happen as often as you think. But when I go into a deep cleaning, that happens even less. When I have to clean the toilet or dust, then I'll do that. But, the deep cleaning. So I went and I started going through stuff. And that's basically where I came up with this segment because I wound up digging through and I found some old pictures and I found some old letters and cards, found some toys that I didn't know where they were, and even found my dad's medals. And I knew they were in the closet. I just forgot that along with that, there was pictures of my dad, and even my mom had some pictures of basically the book that she signed, at her funeral when people signed. So I got to the fact that I wanted to talk about how sometimes when we clean, it's kind of like going down memory lane. And it's good. I used to be I was never a hoarder, but I used to like save every little thing. And I've started getting better at keeping the stuff that I really, really love and basically getting rid of the stuff that is sentimental, but am I really going to be looking at it all the time? And so I know it's not easy for people, and I know there are some people that are borderline hoarders, and of course some that are. I know some, and I know some people who have family members who are. So I know it's a serious situation. I am nowhere near that, in no way. But I do used to keep stuff that's like ridiculous. Like I'd keep an essay that I got an A plus on. I never ever, every time I'd go through the box again, I'd be like, oh yeah, I was so proud of this. I wanted to keep it. And then I said, well, every time I go into this box, I never read it. I'm proud of it, but what do I need it for? It's not like one day I'm going to read the essay, or maybe I run out of stuff and I'm going to read the essay on here. So anyhow, sorry about that. A little dry cough. Don't have water with me. I always usually do. But anyhow, yeah, so I started getting better at this. So I had gotten rid of a whole bunch of stuff that obviously certain letters that I get from people I keep. Other stuff I get rid of, because it was more the memory. So I stumbled on a whole bunch of stuff and I had to make decisions, what I keep, what I don't. It's always nice finding pictures. I literally found pictures of my old apartment, and it had pictures of Mike around the time I met him. It had pictures of Dave and Heather Corda, most of you know her as, my friend Eric, and my other friend David that I just had on the show, and just wonderful. So happy in that little apartment, You even see the clutter in the pictures. I love it. You see the, boxes of stuff I had, which I don't have anymore. I still have boxes of stuff, but not as much as I used to. Um, and it's that's one of the things. The problem though is I get to the point where I go through this stuff and I get so sentimental. And then I almost like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. It's too much. But I'm getting to the point where I'm not keeping everything. I'm like, okay, I know what I should keep and what I shouldn't. I figure if I take my time to read it, then I'm probably going to read it again. But if it's something that's like I'm dear to, but no, I'm not going to read this again, then I'm going to get rid of it. Or if I really can't make that decision right now, I don't want to throw anything out of haste. I got rid of some old, I used to keep some of my old report cards, even the ones that are like, he needs help in this and he needs help in that. And after I think, why the hell am I holding on to this? Now, I had just got emotional seeing Hacksaw Ridge and finding my father's medals and his certificates from the war. I know the last time I saw this was at his funeral, and I put it in a box and put it in the back of my closet. I wasn't ready to deal with it, and today, I think fresh off of Hacksaw Ridge a couple of weeks ago, I wasn't ready to deal with it either, but it was nice to look at his medals and just can't imagine all the stuff he went through. And then seeing some pictures of him when he was younger and stuff like that. Even finding like old stuff from my mother was really touching, even letters of sympathy. And then I kept thinking to myself, well, how long do you keep letters of sympathy? I understand if they wrote something like really special in it or something, but sometimes it's just the card and then that. So I was like making a decision, like, do I need to keep this and some of it I got rid of, some of it I thought, no, I'm going to hang on to this. We hang on to so much, and I'm someone who does, but I realize that I have wonderful memories of all this stuff, and if one day I get to the point, and I hope it doesn't happen, but I start forgetting things, and I know it's got to happen. It's inevitable when you get older. I like to think of them more of they slip your mind than forgetting things. But if I do start forgetting things, that's the wonderful thing about having a podcast. All this stuff is being kept and saved. And yeah, there's a chance it could all disappear and I might lose it. But it's nice that I'm going to be able to listen back on these and think of it. And it's just like when you're cleaning and you stumble on things like, oh my God, I haven't seen that in years. But then you do have to make that decision whether you're going to get rid of it or hang on to it. And it's not an easy decision. And I'm sure if you have hoarding instincts, it's going to be very difficult. Because you're not just hoarding newspapers or certain things. You could be hoarding food and stuff like that. So I'm getting better at that kind of stuff, but it's still not easy. Because even when I decide like a bunch of sympathy cards for my mother, I'm looking through them, reading them, and I'm touched by them all. And I automatically get the memories of the people who visited me, who were there for me, who supported me. But it's not like I'm going to just sit and have an evening where I'm going to just read those sympathy cards again. Now, I kept some that had like personal notes in it. But the other ones, I just was like, I'm just hanging on to this stuff, and it's not bringing my mother back. It's not changing the fact. Yeah, it's great to stumble on and things, but I always keep something. Like, I always keep something. But, yeah, so sometimes when you're cluttering, it becomes like this big emotional, you're wrestling with all this stuff, and it's crazy. And it's a good thing, too. Because sometimes it's wonderful to have a smile on your face. I found a picture of me in the 80s with long hair. And just how big and bushy it was. And I hated myself looking at it. And I think it's funny because I've always said I'm probably never going to have hair like that again. Now, anybody who's seen me lately knows I've actually been growing my hair longer. Now, it's not long because I'm keeping it thin long, but it's just something I feel like doing. You know, I'm probably going to get sick of it one day and I'm going to get rid of it. But it's amazing seeing old pictures like this and just reminding yourself of what a time. Absolutely. And I stumbled on things I wrote. And like today, I came across some old poetry. And yes, I know I have promised to do a segment on my poetry, and I will. Maybe sometime soon I will do it. Some of it is just embarrassing, but I will share some with you because I have always promised I would do it. And here we are coming up to almost 100 episodes and I haven't showed a word. I also found a musical I was working on. And I almost thought of tossing it, but then I started reading it and thinking, this is actually pretty good. I'm going to see if I can salvage it. Maybe, who knows, maybe the next part of my life I'll write musicals. I don't know. Then I actually found something that I was shocked I actually wrote. It was almost like a confessional. Not a confessional, that's not the word. Almost like a diary where I actually listed stuff that I said I'd never talk about. I've only told a few people in this world. And there it was written in ink, and I don't know if I did that on purpose. So like if something were to happen to me, maybe people could find it. But I thought about getting rid of it, but it was just a little too dark for me to read. But I decided to keep it because I thought, why not? I want to be able to finish it all to see if it is something I want to keep. Anyhow, if you do some cleaning with the holidays coming up, just remember you don't have to keep everything. I know some people like to, but some things you don't need to. And it's good to unclutter because you will always have your memories and the stuff that you may have forgotten. Maybe sometimes it's a good thing we've forgotten that. And other times it's nice when you stumble on something and it makes you smile. Certainly when I saw pictures of my old friends in my apartment, and we're as happy as we are when we get together today, that makes me smile. It means that people like coming over to my place and hanging out. And here we are doing it several decades later. Of course, seeing pictures of my parents make me smile because it's like they're with me for a little bit. And that's always a good thing, especially around the holidays. Anyhow, so you got to let go every once in a while, especially of objects. Keep the people close. The objects you don't necessarily need, all of it. Just keep those really special pieces. And that's my advice to you. I hope you enjoyed this show. I know it was a little bit laid back, and next week's show will also be laid back, although we might try a couple of things. Then get ready for 2 Christmas Bonanza episodes, and after that you might get a retrospect or a rerun show or something, because after the stuff I got planned with you for the next couple of weeks, I'm going to need a bit of a break for the new year. Anyhow, look forward to those episodes, and thank you for sharing your time with me today. Thank you, and I will see you all very, very soon.